The great hall was full of noise. Voices from 42 different species filled the air like a storm that never ended. Some voices were deep like thunder. Some were high like birds. Some made sounds that human ears could barely hear. But they all had one thing in common. They were all arguing. Ambassador Yuna sat in the upper gallery and watched the chaos below. She had been sitting there for 6 hours. Her back hurt. Her eyes were tired. But she did not move. She could not move. Too many lives depended on what happened in this room. The Galactic Council met in a building that floated in space. Station Meridian, they called it. It was older than most civilizations. The walls were made of a metal that shimmered like water. The ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. It was beautiful. It was grand. And right now, it was completely useless. Yuna turned to her aide. Taiho was a young man with serious eyes. He held a small screen in his hands. The screen showed numbers. Bad numbers. 3 more stations went dark last night, Taiho said. His voice was quiet. We lost contact at midnight. No response since then. Yuna closed her eyes for a moment. 3 stations meant thousands of people. Families, children, all gone in a single night. And the council? She asked Te, who looked down at the arguing delegates. The Mentari want to review old treaties. They say we need to check the laws from 200 years ago before we can do anything. 200 years ago, the Veluxi did not exist. I know. I told them that. They said the principle still applies. Yuna felt a headache forming behind her eyes. The Veluxi had appeared 18 months ago. They came from the edge of the galaxy, from a place no one had explored. Their ships were massive. Their weapons were powerful. And they did not talk. They only took Dot in 18 months. They had conquered 11 species. 11 entire civilizations gone. Some were enslaved. Some were scattered across the stars as refugees. The lucky ones died quickly. And in those same 18 months, the Galactic Council had done nothing. They had talked. They had formed committees. They had written reports. They had debated the proper response, the legal framework, the historical precedents. They had done everything except actually help. Below, the Mentari delegate was speaking again. He was a tall creature with too many arms and a voice like grinding rocks. He was explaining why they needed more time to study the situation. Always more time. Always more study. Meanwhile, people died. What about the Hollow? Yuna asked. They want to consult their hive mind before voting. How long will that take? 4 cycles, minimum. 4 cycles. Nearly a week in human time. The Veluxi fleet would reach Station Kappa 7 in 3 days. Yuna stood up. Her legs were stiff from sitting so long. She walked to the edge of the gallery and looked down at the council floor. From up here, the delegates looked small. Small and foolish and very, very slow. She had joined the diplomatic corps because she believed in cooperation. She believed that different species could work together, could solve problems together, could build something greater than any of them could build alone. She had spent 20 years of her life in service to that belief. Now she was starting to wonder if she had wasted her time. The council is good at keeping peace between members, Taiho said, joining her at the railing. They have prevented 3 wars in the last century. Preventing wars between friends is easy, Yuna replied. What happens when the enemy does not want to be your friend? What happens when the enemy does not care about your laws or your treaties or your very important committees? Taiho had no answer. On the council floor, another delegate rose to speak. This one was from a species that breathed liquid instead of air. It spoke through a translation device that made its words sound flat and mechanical. We must consider the economic impact, the delegate said. War is expensive. Our trade routes would suffer. Our markets would become unstable. We must think about the long-term consequences. Yuna wanted to scream. Long-term consequences? There would be no long-term if the Veluxy kept advancing. There would be no economy to worry about if everyone was dead or enslaved. But she did not scream. Ambassadors did not scream. Ambassadors stayed calm. Ambassadors found solutions through words and patience and careful negotiation. Except words were not working. Patience was not working. And there was no one to negotiate with. The Veluxy did not answer calls. They did not respond to messages. They simply came, and they took, and they moved on to the next target. Taiho, Yuna said slowly. How many people live on Station Kappa 7? The young man checked his screen. 40,000 civilians. About 12,000 of them are children. 40,000 people. 12,000 children. All of them sitting in the path of a fleet that would arrive in 72 hours. And the council was arguing about treaties from 200 years ago. Yuna made a decision. I need you to find me a ship, she said. Something small. Something fast. Something that is not officially part of the fleet. Taiho looked at her with surprise. Ambassador? The council will not act. They will debate and delay until everyone on Kappa 7 is dead. I cannot let that happen. What are you planning? Yuna watched the delegates below. They were still arguing. They would argue until the stars burned out. Someone needs to talk to the Veluxy, she said. If the council will not send an official mission, then I will find someone who does not need their permission. It was a dangerous idea. It was probably a foolish idea. But it was better than sitting here and watching people die while politicians argued about paperwork. Taiho nodded slowly. I know a ship. A survey vessel called the Persistence. The captain is a man named Doan. He is not military. He is not official. But he is close enough to reach the Veluxy fleet in time. Contact him, Yuna said. Tell him I have a job for him. Tell him it is important. What if he says no? Yuna looked out at the stars beyond the great window. Somewhere out there, a fleet of warships was moving closer. Somewhere out there, 40,000 people were waiting to learn their fate. Then I will find someone else, she said. But I will not sit here and do nothing. Not anymore. The council continued to argue. The clock continued to tick. And Ambassador Yuna began to plan something that would either save thousands of lives or end her career forever. She did not care about her career. She only cared about the children on Station Kappa 7 who might never see another sunrise. Someone had to do something. And if no one else would, then she would do it herself. Captain Doan was not a soldier. He had never fired a weapon in combat. He had never commanded a warship. He was just a 53-year-old man who flew a small survey vessel through the quiet parts of space, looking at rocks and measuring dust clouds. When the message from Ambassador Yuna arrived, he was sitting in his cabin, eating noodles from a plastic container. The ship was parked near a small moon with no name. Outside his window, stars burned in the endless black. He read the message 3 times. Then he put down his noodles and sat very still for a long moment. The Veluxy. She wanted him to fly to the Veluxy. Doan had heard the stories. Everyone had heard the stories. Ships torn apart like paper. Entire planets emptied of life. A fleet so large that it blocked out the light of suns. The Veluxy were not just enemies. They were a force of nature. They were death itself, moving slowly across the galaxy dot. And this ambassador wanted him to fly right up to them and say, hello. He should have deleted the message. He should have pretended he never received it. No one would blame him. He was a survey captain, not a diplomat. This was not his job. This was not his problem. But then he thought about his wife Mina had died 4 years ago. cancer. The doctors had tried everything, but some battles cannot be won. Do-han had held her hand at the end. She had looked at him with tired eyes and said, "Promise me you will not stop living. Promise me you will find something worth doing." He had promised, and he had tried to keep that promise. He had joined the Survey Corps because he needed something to fill the empty hours. He had flown to the far edges of known space because he could not bear to stay on Earth, where everything reminded him of her dot. But was he really living, or was he just existing? Was he doing anything that mattered, or was he just counting the days until he could see her again? The message glowed on his screen. 40,000 people. 12,000 children. Do-han stood up and walked to the bridge. His crew was small. Just 7 people, not counting himself. They were scientists and engineers, not warriors. Bora was his navigator, a young woman from Seoul who had joined the Corps straight out of university. Junho was his engineer, a quiet man who could fix anything with enough time and wire. The others were researchers, technicians, people who had signed up to study the universe, not fight in it. They all looked up when he entered. "We have a situation," Do-han said. He explained the message. He explained what the ambassador was asking. He told them about the Veluxy fleet and the people on station Kappa 7 and the council that could not agree on anything. When he finished, the bridge was silent. "Captain," Bora said slowly, "you know that is suicide, right? One small ship against 300 warships. I know. We have no weapons. We have no shields. We have a survey vessel designed to look at rocks. I know. Then why are you even considering this?" Do-han looked at his crew. These were good people. They trusted him. They had followed him to the edges of the galaxy without complaint. He had no right to ask them to follow him into death. "I am not ordering anyone to come with me," he said. "I am not even asking. I am telling you what I am going to do, and I am giving you the choice to stay or go." "Why?" Junho asked. "Why would you do this?" Do-han thought about Mina. He thought about her smile and her laugh and the way she always knew when he was lying. He thought about the promise he had made to her at the end. "Because someone has to," he said. "Because there are children on that station who will die if no one does anything. Because I've spent 4 years running away from the world, and maybe it is time I ran towards something instead." The crew looked at each other. Do-han could see the fear in their eyes. He did not blame them. He was afraid to. "Captain," Bora said, "I have a question." "Yes?" "What exactly are you planning to do when you reach the Veluxy? Walk up to them and ask them to stop?" "Something like that. That is insane." "Probably." Bora was quiet for a moment. Then she turned to her navigation console and started typing. "What are you doing?" Do-han asked. "Calculating the fastest route to the Veluxy fleet. If we leave now, we can get there with 6 hours to spare before they reach Kappa 7. Do-han stared at her. "Bora, I said you do not have to come." "I know what you said." She did not look up from her console. "But someone has to make sure you do not get lost. You are terrible at reading star maps." One by one, the other crew members returned to their stations. Junho started checking the engines. The researchers began preparing the communication systems. No one left. No one asked to transfer to the shuttle dot. Do-han felt something warm in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize what it was. Hope. For the first time in 4 years, he felt hope. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Do not thank us yet," Bora replied. "Thank us when we survive. If we survive." "When?" "I did not spend 6 years in university to die in a survey ship with a captain who cannot read maps." The Persistence turned toward the stars. Its engines hummed to life. The small ship began to move, slowly at first, then faster and faster. Behind them, the nameless moon continued its quiet orbit. Ahead of them, 300 warships waited in the dark. Dohan sat in his captain's chair and watched the stars blur into lines of light as the ship accelerated. He thought about Mina. He thought about the children on station, Kappa 7. He thought about all the people who were depending on a retired firefighter and his crew of scientists to do the impossible. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small photograph. The edges were worn from years of handling. The colors had faded, but her face was still clear. Her smile was still bright. "I am going to try something stupid," he whispered to the photograph. "But I think you would be proud of me." The Persistence flew on through the darkness. One small ship against an empire. One old man against an army. It was not much of a plan. But it was better than doing nothing. And sometimes, doing something was all that mattered. The Veluxy command ship was bigger than anything Dohan had ever seen. It was bigger than a city. It was bigger than a mountain. It hung in space like a dark cloud, blocking out the stars behind it. The Persistence approached slowly. On the bridge, everyone was silent. They had all seen pictures of Veluxy ships before. Pictures did not prepare them for this. "That thing could swallow us whole," Bora whispered. "It could swallow us and not even notice." Dohan nodded. His throat was dry. His hands were shaking. But he kept his voice steady when he spoke. "Start broadcasting the peace signal. All frequencies. Let them know we are not a threat." Junho activated the communication system. A simple message went out into space, repeating over and over. "We come in peace. We wish to talk. Please respond." The fleet did not respond. But it did not attack either. That was something. 300 warships surrounded the command ship like guards around a king. Each one was larger than the Persistence. Each one could destroy them in seconds. But none of them moved. None of them fired. "They see us," Bora said, watching her sensors. "They are definitely watching us." "Good," Dohan said. "Let them watch." The Persistence kept moving forward, closer and closer to the massive command ship. Dohan felt like an ant walking toward an elephant. Any moment, the elephant could step on him. But sometimes, ants were too small to bother stepping on. "Captain." Bora pointed at her screen. "Something is moving on the command ship." Dohan looked. A section of the dark hull was opening. Light spilled out from inside. And something was extending from the opening. A long tube, reaching out toward them like a finger. "A docking tube," Junho said. "They want us to come aboard." The bridge was very quiet. "Well," Dohan said, "that is either very good news or very bad news." "How do you figure?" "If they wanted us dead, they would have shot us already. The fact that they want us to come inside means they are curious. Curious is better than hostile. Curious can also mean they want to study us before they kill us." "True, but I will take curious over immediate death." The Persistence docked with the command ship. The connection was smooth and gentle, like the Veluxy had done this many times before. Probably they had. They had conquered 37 species. They knew how to capture ships. Dohan stood up from his chair. He looked at his crew. They looked back at him with fear and trust, and something that might have been admiration. "I am going alone," he said. "Captain, no." Bora stood up. "You cannot go alone. That is crazy. If something goes wrong, I want witnesses. I want someone who can escape and tell the galaxy what happened here. If we all go and we all die, no one will ever know. And if you die, then you fly home and tell everyone that I tried." Bora looked like she wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. She sat back down slowly. Dohan picked up two things from his cabin. The first was a small translation device. It could understand most known languages and might work on the Veluxy. The second was a metal case that he had carried with him for 4 years. Inside the case was the photograph of Mina. He walked to the airlock alone. The door opened. A long corridor stretched out before him, made of the same dark metal as the ship's hull. The air smelled strange. Not bad, just different. Like nothing he had ever breathed before. At the end of the corridor, something was waiting. The Veluxi was tall, 3 meters at least, maybe more. Its body was covered in scales that changed color as Dohan watched, shifting from black to blue to green and back again. It had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. All 4 eyes were fixed on him. "You are small," the Veluxi said. Its voice came through the translator as a deep rumble. "Your ship has no weapons. Why do you come here?" Dohan's heart was pounding. His instincts were screaming at him to run. This creature was a predator. Everything about it said danger. The scales, the eyes, the way it moved like a hunting animal waiting to strike. But Dohan had faced danger before. He had run into burning buildings when everyone else was running out. He had pulled people from wreckage while the flames closed in around him. He knew how to control fear. "I came to ask you a question," he said. The Veluxi made a sound. It might have been laughter. It might have been anger. The translator could not tell the difference. Many creatures have asked us questions. We answer with conquest. We answer by taking what is theirs. I know, but I am asking anyway. The Veluxi studied him. All 4 eyes moved independently, examining him from different angles at once. Dohan felt like a bug under a microscope. "You are brave," the Veluxi said finally. "Or foolish. Perhaps both. Come. The Supreme Commander will see you. He enjoys speaking with brave fools before we add their flags to our collection." Dohan followed the Veluxi through the corridors of the command ship. What he saw made his blood run cold. Everywhere he looked, there were trophies. Flags from conquered worlds hung on the walls. Weapons from defeated armies sat in display cases. Statues of fallen leaders stood in alcoves, frozen forever in poses of defeat. The Veluxi did not just conquer. They collected. Every species they destroyed became another piece in their museum. They passed a display of small objects. Toys, Dohan realized. Children's toys from a dozen different worlds. The Veluxi had taken even that. "You keep everything," Dohan said. "We keep what matters," the Veluxi replied. "Memory is power. When a species is gone, only we remember them. That is our gift. We make them immortal. They might prefer to be alive. Life is temporary. Memory is forever." They reached a massive door. It opened silently, revealing a chamber larger than any room Dohan had ever seen. The ceiling was lost in darkness above. The walls were covered with flags, hundreds of them, each one representing a civilization that no longer existed. And in the center of the room, sitting on a throne made of alien metal, was the Supreme Commander. It was larger than the other Veluxi. Its scales were gold instead of shifting colors. Its 4 eyes burned with an intelligence that seemed older than the stars themselves. "So," the Supreme Commander said, "another small creature comes to beg for mercy. Tell me, tiny being, what makes you think we will listen?" Dohan stood alone in the chamber of flags. He was one man against an empire. One voice against 10,000 years of conquest. But he had not come here to beg. He had come here to ask a question. And sometimes, the right question could change everything. The Supreme Commander sat on its throne like a god. The golden scales caught what little light there was in the chamber and turned it into fire. 4 ancient eyes looked down at Dohan with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. "Speak," the commander said. "You have traveled far to stand before me. I will hear your words before I decide your fate." Dohan looked around the room. So many flags. So many nations, empires, civilizations. All of them ended. All of them reduced to cloth hanging on a wall. "I want to understand," Dohan said. That is why I came. Not to beg. Not to threaten. Just to understand. Understand what? Why you do this. The Supreme Commander made a sound that rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. It was laughing. Why? Because we are strong. Because we can. The weak exist to serve the strong. This is the law of the universe. We did not make this law. We simply follow it better than anyone else. Is that really why? What other reason could there be? Do-hun took a step forward. The guards around the throne shifted, their weapons ready. But the commander raised a hand, and they became still again. I used to be a firefighter, Do-hun said. Do you know what that is? A fighter of fire. A servant who risks his life to save others. Yes, I did that for 30 years. I ran into burning buildings while everyone else was running out. I carried strangers through smoke and flame. I breathed in poison so that others could breathe clean air. A noble profession. Foolish, but noble. Do you know why I did it? The commander tilted its head. The scales on its neck rippled with changing colors. Because you were told to. Because it was your duty. Because you needed to survive. No. Do-hun shook his head. I did it because helping others gave my life meaning. When I saved someone, when I pulled a child from a burning house, or helped an old woman escape from smoke, I felt something. Purpose. Connection. I felt like I was part of something larger than myself. The commander was silent. But then my wife died, Do-hun continued. Her name was Mina. She was everything to me. When she was gone, I lost myself. I did not know who I was anymore. I did not know why I kept living. He opened the metal case he had been carrying. Inside was the photograph. He took it out gently and held it where the commander could see. For 4 years, I have been running. I joined the Survey Corps and flew to the edges of the galaxy because I could not stand to be home. I thought maybe if I kept moving, kept searching, I would find something to fill the emptiness inside me. And did you? No, I saw wonders. I visited places that no human had ever visited. I watched stars being born and plants being made. But none of it filled the whole, because the whole was not about places or things. It was about connection. It was about love. It was about meaning. Do-hun set the photograph on the floor between them. Mina's face looked up at the ceiling of flags. I look at you, Do-hun said, and I see the same emptiness. The commander's scales stopped moving. All 4 eyes fixed on Do-hun with sudden intensity. You take, Do-hun continued. You conquer. You collect. Flag after flag, world after world, civilization after civilization. But it is never enough, is it? You keep taking because you cannot stop. Because the moment you stop, you have to face the truth. What truth? That you are trying to fill a void with things. You are collectors, not conquerors. You are hoarders of memories because you have forgotten how to make new ones. You gather the achievements of others because you have stopped achieving anything yourselves. The chamber was completely silent. Even the guards seemed frozen. I know what that feels like, Do-hun said softly. After Mina died, I kept her things. Her clothes, her books, her jewelry. I surrounded myself with pieces of her because I could not accept that she was gone. But the pieces were not her. They were just things. And no amount of things could bring her back. He looked up at the flags on the walls. How many species have you destroyed? 37? 40? 100? And what do you have to show for it? Cloth and metal and memories of creatures who will never speak again. You are not building anything. You are not creating anything. You are just taking and taking and taking, and the emptiness never goes away. The Supreme Commander rose from its throne. It was enormous. Standing, it towered over Do-hun like a mountain. Its golden scales blazed in the dim light. You dare, the commander said. Its voice was very quiet now, which was somehow more frightening than shouting. You dare to speak to me of emptiness. I am the supreme commander of the Veluxi Empire. I have conquered more worlds than you have seen stars. I have ruled for 10,000 years. And in those 10,000 years, Dohon asked, have you ever been happy? The commander stopped. Have you ever felt joy? Not the satisfaction of victory. Not the pleasure of taking. Real joy. The kind that comes from connection, from love, from being part of something that does not require conquest to exist. The silence stretched on. Seconds passed. Then minutes. The commander stood frozen, staring at Dahan with all four eyes. Finally, it spoke. When we began, the commander said slowly, we were different. We were builders, creators. We made things of beauty. We loved and laughed and lived like any other species. What happened? War, loss, pain. We lost everything that mattered. Our home, our families, our purpose. We survived, but survival was not enough. So we began to take. We thought that if we could gather enough, if we could collect enough, we would feel whole again. Did it work? The commander looked at the flags on the walls, at the trophies of 100 civilizations, at 10,000 years of conquest. No, it said. It never worked. But we did not know how to stop. We forgot that there was anything else. Dawn picked up the photograph of Mina. I'm not asking you to stop being strong, he said. I am asking you to remember why strength matters. It is not about taking. It is about protecting. It is about building. It is about giving the next generation something worth having. He held out the photograph to the commander. This is my wife. She died 4 years ago. I cannot bring her back, but I can honor her by living the way she would have wanted, by helping people instead of running away, by connecting instead of hiding. The commander looked at the photograph for a long time. You came here alone, it said. No weapons. No army. Just one small creature with a picture and a question. That is all I have, and yet you are not afraid. I am terrified. But some things are more important than fear. The commander reached out with one massive hand and gently touched the photograph. What do you want from us, human? Dohan looked at the ancient creature before him. He looked at the chamber of flags and the throne of metal and the 10,000 years of conquest written in every trophy on the walls. I want you to ask yourselves one question, he said. When you have conquered everything, when every flag hangs in your halls and every species kneels before you, what then? Will you finally be happy? Will the emptiness finally go away? Or will you realize that you spent 10,000 years running from the same pain that I have spent 4 years running from? The commander was silent. Because I can tell you the answer, Doan said. It never goes away. Not until you stop running and face it. Not until you find something worth living for instead of just something worth taking. He looked at the photograph one more time. Mina taught me that. I almost forgot. But standing here, in this chamber of the dead, I remember now. The commander closed all 4 of its eyes, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the Veluxi Supreme Commander listened. The Galactic Council was still arguing when the transmission arrived. Ambassador Yuna had not slept in 2 days. She sat in the observation gallery with Taiho beside her, watching the delegates below argue about the same things they had been arguing about for weeks. Procedures, protocols, the proper way to respond to a threat that would not wait for proper procedures. Then, every screen in the chamber flickered. The image that appeared was massive. The Supreme Commander of the Veluxi filled the display, golden scales gleaming, 4 eyes staring out at the assembled delegates of 42 species. The arguing stopped immediately. We have spoken with your human, the commander said. Why Yuna leaned forward. Her heart was pounding. She had sent Dohan into the darkness with nothing but hope and a survey ship. She had not known if she would ever hear from him again. He came to us alone, the commander continued. No weapons, no army, no threats. He asked us a question that we have never been asked in 10,000 years of conquest. The council chamber was completely silent. Yuna had never heard it so quiet. He asked us why we take. He asked us what we are looking for. He asked us if conquest has ever made us happy. The Supreme Commander paused. Its scales shifted through colors that Yuna had never seen in any recording of the Veluxy. Colors that looked almost soft, almost peaceful. We have spent 10,000 years trying to fill an emptiness inside ourselves. We have conquered 37 species. We have gathered the memories of civilizations beyond counting. And still the emptiness remains. Your humans showed us why. The Montari delegates started to stand, perhaps to object to this interruption of proper protocol. A dozen other delegates grabbed him and pulled him back down. We do not want your flags, the commander said. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your memories. We want what we lost so long ago that we forgot we had lost it. What is that? Someone asked. Yuna could not tell who. Purpose, connection, meaning, the things that cannot be taken, the things that must be built. The commander's image shifted. Behind it, Yuna could see the chamber of flags. All those conquered civilizations hanging silent on the walls. We will withdraw our fleet. We will not attack Station Kappa 7 or any other of your worlds. In exchange, we ask only one thing. The council held its breath. Send us your philosophers, your artists, your healers, your teachers. Not as prisoners, not as trophies. Send them as guides. Help us remember how to build instead of take. Help us find what we have been looking for all along. The transmission ended for exactly 3 seconds. The council chamber was silent, then it exploded. Delegates were shouting, questioning, demanding explanations. The Montari wanted to form a committee to investigate what had just happened. The Hollow were clicking rapidly, trying to connect with their hive mind to process this unexpected development. But Yuna was not listening to any of them. She was looking at Taiho's screen. The screen that showed the tactical data. The screen that tracked the Veluxy fleet. 300 warships were turning around. They are leaving, Taiho whispered. All of them. They are actually leaving. How long was he on that ship? Yuna asked. Taiho checked the timestamps. 3 minutes. Captain Doan was aboard the command ship for exactly 3 minutes. 3 minutes. The council had been debating for weeks. Committees had been formed. Reports had been written. Speeches had been made. And one man with a photograph had done what none of them could do. In 3 minutes, the Persistence returned to Station Meridian 2 days later. There was no celebration waiting. No crowds of grateful citizens. No medals being presented by important officials. Yuna had offered all of those things. Dohan had refused all of them. She found him on an observation deck, alone, looking out at the stars. The council wants to honor you, she said, sitting down beside him. 17 species want to give you their highest awards. You have saved millions of lives. I did not do it for awards, Dohan said. I know. That is what makes you special. He was holding the photograph again. The woman with the kind eyes and the faded colors. I almost lost myself, he said quietly, after Mina died. I thought the only way to survive was to keep moving, keep running, never stop long enough for the pain to catch up. What changed? I realized that running does not work. Not for me. Not for the Veluxy. Not for anyone. The only way through pain is through. You have to face it. You have to feel it. And then you have to find something worth living for on the other side. Yuna looked at the old captain. He did not look like a hero. He looked tired and sad and very, very human. "What will you do now?" she asked. "Keep flying," Dohan said. "But not running this time." The Veluxi asked for teachers and healers and guides. Someone has to help them. Someone has to show them that there is more to existence than taking. That sounds like dangerous work. Maybe, but it is worth doing. Mina would have approved. He smiled just a little. It was the first smile Yuna had seen from him. The council thought they needed weapons to stop the Veluxi, Dohan said. They thought they needed fleets and armies and overwhelming force. They never considered that maybe the Veluxi did not need to be defeated. Maybe they just needed to be understood. That is a very human way of thinking. Maybe that is what we are good at. We are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest or the fastest or the most advanced. But we feel things. We connect with things. We look at our enemies and we ask ourselves why they are enemies in the first place. Bora appeared at the door of the observation deck. She looked exhausted but happy. "Captain, the crew's asking about our next mission. What should I tell them?" Dohan stood up slowly. He tucked the photograph back into his pocket. "Tell them we are going to teach the Veluxi how to paint," he said. "Paint?" "Yes. I think they have forgotten what it means to create something beautiful. We are going to remind them." He walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back to look at Yuna. "Tell the council that this is what humans do," he said. "We do not just fight our enemies. We try to understand them. We try to help them. Even when it seems impossible. Even when it seems foolish. Because sometimes the impossible and foolish thing is exactly what needs to be done." He left the observation deck. Yuna stayed behind, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a fleet of former conquerors was waiting to learn how to build instead of destroy. Somewhere out there, the children of Station Kappa 7 were sleeping peacefully, safe from a threat they had never known existed. And somewhere out there, a retired firefighter was teaching an empire that the strongest thing in the universe was not weapons or fleets or the power to destroy. It was the courage to ask a question. It was the wisdom to listen to the thought. Answer. It was the willingness to see your enemy as something more than just an enemy. That was what humans were good at. That was what made them dangerous. And that was what made them worth knowing. The stars burned on in the darkness. The universe continued its slow dance of creation and destruction. And in a small corner of the galaxy, hope had been born from a 3-minute conversation between a grieving old man and an ancient empire that had forgotten how to grieve. It was not the ending anyone had expected, but it was the ending they all needed. And sometimes that was enough.